What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the KJ52 podcast. This is the Facebook Live edition. I am here in my porch. It is the beautiful golden hour. That's why my skin looks so incredible right now. And I am going to be jumping in here with a homie from way back who goes by the rap name Chun Jae, a.k.a. Jamie Bennett. And he is just a guy. Actually, we go way back. We go back to almost the start of my career. And we actually had an opportunity to go to Hawaii back then. And while we were on that Hawaii trip, you get to know somebody very well, especially when they get, completely burnt toasted on the beach like we did. Anyway, so I've known Jamie for a long time. He used to be in a group by the name of Royal Ruckus. He's going to be jumping in here. And I think about 3-4 weeks ago, I threw out something about Game of Thrones, the show, the HBO Game of Thrones show. Jamie, you got to send me a request. That's how it works. Anyway, we were talking about Game of Thrones. I was talking about it. I posted up something on my Twitter, and basically I made a sort of semi-joke. I said, is Game of Thrones nothing more than Dungeons and Dragons with porn scenes? And he took a response to that online, and kind of just, we were talking back and forth, and basically I said, you know what, man, this should probably just be a podcast because you seem to be on the pro Game of Thrones side. I thought maybe we could have you kind of share your opinion on it and take it on from there. So actually, me and the homie Ofe, who I'm going to bring on here real quick if that's cool. My man Ofe, I know me and you had talked about this, and so before I bring on Jamie, I thought I could have you on. There you go.
Yo, shout out to KJ's hair.
Shout out to this Kramer looking thing up here.
He's fresh, bro.
Just trying to get on your level, bro. See, you gotta use gel to get to this level. Mine is just natural Florida humidity.
That's right. Yeah, man. That's that anyway, Latino hair.
Let's fill him in on what we were talking about. How, essentially we said that, you and I had seen a lot of our people talking about how great the show was. And, we're both in various forms of ministry. And, was that something that can be reconciled with a believer's faith, watching something that has a reputation for being so pornographic? So, is that right?
Exactly. Yep. Accurate.
Yeah. So here we are. I guess there's nowhere to go from there.
Good transition.
All right. It's been a great time. High five, everybody. Peace out. I'm going to go fix this hair. Now, it is funny for me because, for me growing up as a kid, I was, severely into, actually Dungeons and Dragons, the board game. I don't know if you remember this game. I used to have my dad drag me I'd drag my dad all the time to these, medieval fairs where, from, 8, 9, 10, that's all I was into. Dragons and wizards and things of that nature. So I guess in some ways, the show, that would have been my thing, you know what I mean? But, I don't know.
Yeah.
It has nothing for me. What's your opinion on it?
So I've not watched a full episode, a single episode on Game of Thrones. I haven't seen one. And I honestly, just from the small information that I've gathered from Game of Thrones from people that do watch it, I don't have a desire to watch it. You don't have to watch an episode of Game of Thrones to know, exactly what it's showing, what it's about. You don't have to watch a full episode. So the limited knowledge that I do have was enough for me and for my wife and I to just choose to opt out from it, just because what I've heard from it. You know what I mean?
But we had that conversation. You said you had actually a combo with somebody was it in your church or a friend of yours?
Oh, there's a handful of people.
Defend it.
I mean, I
Yeah,
think
go
there's a
ahead.
handful of people in the church and outside of the church, as far as Christians or non-Christians, that I've heard the same reasoning for it. And before I go on, I would say I don't question their salvation because of the show that they're watching. It's not to that level of like, man, I don't even know if they're saved now. It's just different preferences. But yeah, I've had people from that are Christian let me know that the reason they do watch it, and the reason they justify the certain scenes is, and I'm pretty sure everyone's heard this, is that it's a great storyline. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the reason why it's a great storyline. And I've even said there's this program called, I don't know if you heard of VidAngel. Have you heard of VidAngel?
Mm-mm.
All right, so VidAngel is an actual like software that removes the cursing, removes the sex scenes and all that. And I remember saying like, I would watch it the second it gets on VidAngel, and it removes this. And they told me, well, then there's no point in watching it because then it'll take out the meat of the show. So I'm like, I don't want to watch it, you know?
Show ends up being like 2 minutes long.
Exactly,
It's
exactly. So I'm like,
the
so I
intro
just
and the
rather not
outro, and
watch
then it's
it.
over.
Yeah, man. And so I just choose not. And the thing is, my wife and I, we might be extra conservative when it comes
Yeah.
to that. Even on Netflix, like you mentioned, you watch Netflix. That's what we watch. We're really big on Netflix. We watch Netflix, but even the movies on that, we either don't watch it or when we're watching and a scene comes on, we're still the old school couple that we fast forward it or we just end it.
Right.
We're just that
Right.
conservative. We just choose not to watch things like that.
Well, I mean, you say conservative, so like, why be conservative? What's the point of that? Like, where does that even come from?
Well, I think biblically there's grounds as to what we watch. Certainly, Ephesians speaks on the sexual impurity. Watch what you watch. Don't allow yourself to gratify the flesh. And I think those things, although some brothers might say, well, hey, I could watch it and it doesn't drive me to sexual impurity or porn. They might say that. And kudos to their strength. I just know the opening that can do to somebody you know, and I know where that can lead. So for me, there was this one there was I remember in the youth group there was this I think it was my older sister actually. She made this play, right, and it stayed with me to this day. And it was Jesus randomly visiting you at home in your apartment. And the play was Jesus knocking, and he's not saying anything, but as he just steps into your apartment, he grabs a magazine, and then she says, "Oh no, Jesus, don't watch that magazine. You don't want to see that. Well, here's the Bible." He sits down and he turns on
Yeah.
the TV, and then don't watch that. You're not gonna like that, Jesus. The music plays, and no, let's not listen to that. Oh, I'm gonna go to a party. She gets a phone call. She's gonna go to a party, but Jesus, don't come to that party with me. And that stayed with me because it's interesting how we compartmentalize our faith and we want to put Jesus in certain things but remove him in other things. So for me, my wife and
Yeah.
I in our home, would we feel comfortable if Jesus was sitting on the couch watching the show we were watching, the movie we were watching? And if he's not, if we feel like he would not be, then we don't watch it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think probably I'm even more cognizant of it now that I have 3 kids. Three
Mm,
boys.
right.
Um, you know, I can say, sadly, that they have stumbled across things just on the internet without even trying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
YouTube. Yeah.
there's no and so like we've had to put full blocks on their phones. Uh, I mean, it's like as a parent, like the amount level of how I have to police them, especially in this world where literally everything is at their fingertips. Um, you know, I've just had to be even more careful. So yeah, there was no need for me to get HBO. We haven't even bought another TV yet.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And honestly, I don't even miss it. On so many
Yeah.
levels. It's weird. It's that now I yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I
Yeah.
know Jamie's in the chat. I don't know why he hasn't sent me an invite yet, but if he wants to jump in here, please feel free. I think he
Yeah.
was having some technical difficulties. So far, we've only talked about the one side of this perspective. The whole
Yeah.
point was to get multiple perspectives on it. So
Yeah, and the thing is
anyway,
also, man, to always add on to it is I'm not I'm not in no way, shape, or form saying that these brothers and sisters that watch it that they're not brothers and sisters.
right,
My call is simply more so an encouragement. Like, my encouragement is I rather everything I do, um, is this something that I'm leading my wife, or like in your case, your family? Am I leading them and pointing them to Jesus or not? And if it's pushing them
yeah,
away from Jesus, then I'd rather just opt out from that. Just like when we talk, like you as an artist, and me, us being involved in Christian music, Christian rap, right? I mean, there's a reason why we prefer our kids and our youth to be tuned into Christian hip hop rather than the worldly hip hop because of the messages and what it
yeah,
might lead them to. You know, but yeah, man. Well,
yep.
love you, brother.
All right, man. Keep your hair as high as the sky as possible. Appreciate you.
Love you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Later. All right, so that was my man Ofe, aka Diego. There he is.
Hey,
All right,
it
so
worked.
a little crash course in interneting.
Yeah, no, seriously. I had all kinds of technical difficulties. Sorry about that.
Your beard actually grew longer in the amount of time you were gone. I've noticed.
It
But
must be all the protein and biotin I get, you know?
yeah. So anyway, man, I think I've introduced you quite a bit here, but me
Yeah.
and you go back all the way to Hawaii,
Yes, we
and
do.
the group Royal Ruckus. And anyway, so this conversation kind of started initially with the homie Ofe, but you've kind of heard what we've been discussing, and so I thought it's always good to see all perspectives on
Yeah,
things like that. So, but yeah, just explain Game of Thrones to those that might not even know it, because I am one of
sure.
those, and I know there's actually some people here in the chat room too.
Yeah. Well, so I want to also preface this by saying that I'm not an expert on Game of Thrones. I'm not here today to tell anybody they have to watch Game of Thrones or anything like that. I've seen a few episodes, and on my own podcast, Brews, Beards, and Chipwrecks, I had some guests talking about it. And I think it's obviously a cultural moment, so I'm very interested. So I was really glad when you asked me. I mean, because like the whole tweet thing that you talked about, I was just having a little bit of fun, and I think you were too. You know, uh, so I'm kind of pleased it's turned into this conversation. But Game of Thrones is basically it's an epic fantasy. It's a medieval setting, but they have dragons and zombies and things like that. So there's elements that aren't part of world history as we know it. But there's enough of it that is similar to human history that it's a lot like our Middle Ages. And I think, for fans of Tolkien and Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings and all of that stuff, it fits right in line with that. And so I think it's kind of natural that so many people are going crazy over the story.
Yeah, awesome.
But
Yeah, well, I
yeah,
was saying, like, as a kid, like, I was super into Dungeons and Dragons, the role playing game, and like
sure.
would probably walk around all day if I could in a cape and a sword, and went to medieval fairs and stuff like that. So like the idea of fantasy, I think, is totally intriguing on so many levels. I don't think
Yeah,
any of us is even remotely even talking about that. I think it was obviously the thing that me and Ofe
right.
talked about is just the reputation of just really graphic sex scenes.
Sure.
I had read something like places on Pornhub where we're pulling scenes out of it to use on their website and things
Oh,
like
yikes.
that. And anyway, so I was just curious, as you as a believer, um, how do you rectify your faith with that angle?
Sure.
Is that something? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. I think these are important questions, right? And I think, wait, who was your friend talking earlier?
Ofe,
Diego? Ofe, okay.
Ofe Diego, yes,
So I thought Ofe had some good stuff, right? And he brought up the idea of if Jesus was sitting next to me, how would I feel? Well, the only thing I want to counter to that is Jesus is sitting next to you, right? Like
yes,
we serve a God who's everywhere present in all things, so filling all things. So when we live our lives, at every moment, we are living in front of the face of God. So whatever we do should be in light of that, right? So what the only thing I would say different is I would say if you're going to watch Game of Thrones, know that Jesus is there with you. And I want you to keep your brain on and your faith on and come to it with that. What I want to avoid is I want to avoid this dichotomy between being, that we have to be ultra pure and cannot even get near these things, or the idea that nothing matters and we can just do whatever we want. I think there is a way to engage things that are outside of our moral framework, outside of our comfort zone, without being overtaken by it, right? So there may be, I could conceive of many people. It would be unwise to watch Game of Thrones, particularly if the salacious sex scenes or something are triggering. But what I would encourage people to do is to approach things like Game of Thrones as you would any literature, any movie, where you're bringing your faith in Christ with you, and you're not watching mindlessly. And I think if we're engaged in that, we're able to approach these things in almost a third way from what I feel like we've talked about so far.
So and again, I'm going to go, and I came up doing speech and debate, and a lot of
Sure.
what I do, and plus at one point I was going to be a lawyer. So I'm going to use a lawyer angle, which is essentially saying, could I apply everything you just said to watching porn?
I think, that's a good question. I don't think so, because I think the question comes down to what is the purpose, and the value. Pornography has a very specific purpose, and it's difficult for me to see a Christian using that in a way that's profitable. However, this is a tale of sin, of the human condition, of redemption, of good and evil, and that kind of thing. So there's so much more story here to work with as Christians, and so much more that can even be redeemed in the story.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's hard for me to find that in something about pornography, right?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to go ahead and take the extreme argument side, and I'm going to hit you with one more question.
Please.
Saying, if I am the enemy and want to entrap people, right? We know that Scripture defines Satan as a crafty individual in the sense of the way he tempts, or the way he puts temptation. He doesn't just say, here's a bad thing, you should go ahead and do it. He wraps it in, did God really tell you that? Surely if you eat that apple, it wasn't even an apple, but surely you'll be like God. Would it not beg the idea to take porn and wrap it in a great story if he wanted to entrap people?
Yeah, I suppose so, but I don't know that I would. I don't know that we can make a good case off of a spiritual speculation, right?
Right.
So for me, like at least what I find helpful for myself is dealing with myself and my friends when faced with temptation. For me, the emphasis needs to be on what do I need to do, or how can I reach out to my brothers, and less about what might be going on in order to trap me. And maybe that's not the right approach. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to throw extreme bombs because it makes a better argument. Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and that's usually what I hear. Usually is the counter argument, like, well, yeah, there's some pretty bad stuff in there, but it is essentially it's a good story. So yeah, just a minute, buddy. I'm talking to the universe right now. The entire Facebook.
And can you put him to sleep?
Okay, can you give me 2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thanks, bud. All right. Hashtag dad.
I love it. Seriously.
Yeah.
Dad rappers right there.
My middle son and my younger son are like at it these days, like.
Oh, really?
Cain and Abel, basically.
Yikes.
But anyway, that's honestly, I just really wanted to hear your perspective. That's really all it came down to. And
yeah.
I think, look, I get what you're saying. I disagree with it. But I also feel like within our disagreement, we can agree to disagree and still have cordial
Oh,
discussion.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so, all that to be said, I'm on Jamie's next album. Uh,
Woohoo!
and I'm excited to be on there.
Can you take Isaiah to a car ride?
Guys, shut the door, or I'm gonna take both of you on a car ride.
Take James. He's the one who's
Anyway, the point is, what I'm trying to say is, I appreciate you coming on here because obviously some people would not even want to discuss that.
Yeah.
And and I'm just saying my perspective of.
Sure.
I feel like what Paul would write, to the Corinthians was all things are permissible, but not all things
Right.
can be beneficial.
Right.
Just like I am permitted to buy a new TV set, but it's not beneficial with these two sweet little hellions in my house right now, because they both destroyed the TV set in a rite of passage. So that's a beautiful thing. Anyway, that was really it. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, for those who want to go really deep, right? Anybody maybe on this conversation will want to go really deep. I would say look up St. Basil the Great's letter to young men on the right use of pagan literature. I know that's a mouthful, and it is a little bit of work, but it's from like 1700 years ago. And he was writing to his students and telling them how to properly apply their faith in Christ when they read non-Christian books. Obviously, It was a different context.
Yeah.
But I feel like those who want to be really well equipped, St. Basil would be a fantastic place to start reading and thinking through how to apply your faith, no matter whether it's Game of Thrones or something else.
And I am a huge fan of his spices, and we'll end on that note.
I love it.
All right, man.
Thanks for
I
having me
appreciate
on,
you.
man.
Thanks for getting on here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We love you guys. I'm going to go take one of my children for a car ride to put them to sleep. God bless you guys.